Well, hey ceramic students, it's Miss New here and we are ready to start our first project in clay. Our first project we're going to be working on is a clay monster creature, a pinch pot with personality. Okay, so you kind of get the idea here with some of these examples. So this can be something that's functional, meaning I can put like some candies in here, my spare change, or it can be something more sculptural, like this little piggy here who's turned over. So when you create your pinch pot, check out these little candy corn creatures. Aren't those fun? When you're working on your pinch pot, you can actually set this up in 3 ways. So you can set it up like a cup like this. You can set it up so that the pinch pot is flipped over like that. Or you can set it up where the pinch pot's kind of on its side. So I'm going to show you that today as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this project today. So I really want you to think about what personality is your creature going to have. Is it going to be funny, silly, cute, or is it going to be scary? Is it going to be creepy? Are you going to be basing it off of an image or some visual research that you're doing? Maybe it's going to be more of an animal, or maybe it's just going to be something out of your imagination. So step 1 of this project is to sketch. So you're going to draw out 3 ideas on some sketching paper and just brainstorm your ideas. Okay, I really want you to think about the different possibilities of this project. Then you're going to gather your supplies. So you will need some slip. So you're going to need a slip jar, which you can share with your table mates. I like to have a little sponge and some water for smoothing. I have a fork, a needle tool, and a little modeling tool or blending tool. And then of course you're going to need your clay. So let's go ahead and get started on this. All right, so I'm going to set my examples aside here for a minute and open up my clay bag. Now you're each going to get a bag of clay that has a chunk of clay in it. I'm not going to need all of this clay for this project, but I am going to be sure that my name is on the bag. And I want to be sure I'm sealing the bag in between, when I'm working with this. I don't need all of this clay. So what I'm going to do is take my chunk of clay and just break it about in half. Okay, I'm going to put the rest back in the bag and seal that bag up. And then here, I'm going to set that aside and seal the bag up before I go any further. Get all the air out of it, squish it down, kind of roll it up. And then go on the edge here, make sure that it's sealed. Do a little double check here, make sure that it's sealed, and I can set that aside. Now I can always grab out more clay if I want to, but I don't need all of that. And then I'm going to start by kneading my clay. So it's K-N-E-A-D, like kneading bread. And this is just to wake up the clay molecules in this, the water molecules, the clay particles, I should say, and just kind of get it moving. It's been sitting stagnant in that bag, so we're going to get it moving. And you can see I'm rolling it in a ball and I'm packing it in, kind of like a snowball. And I want to start with a round shape. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. All right, my next step is to take my thumb and I'm going to push it down into the middle of that ball. Okay, now with this part of my hand, I'm going to keep these fingers flat and I'm going to give it a little push. Now I'm going to turn that and give it a little push and keep pushing and turning. All the while, I've got my thumb in the middle and these fingers on the outside, and I'm applying even pressure. Now this other hand is acting kind of like a shaping wheel over here. As I'm going around, it's kind of keeping that cup shape, and I'm not pressing super hard. You can see I don't want to show all of those little finger marks. I'm just going to go gently and work my way around and start to open up this pinch pot. So what I'm trying to do is create even thickness on the walls of my vessel and kind of go around and around. Now, let me show you an example of when this could get a little too thin. Now, if I start pushing really hard and I start getting the walls of my pinch pot super thin like that, that is not gonna work. So I want you to think about this rule. I call it the hang loose rule, okay? You want your clay to be about the thickness of your pinky, but no thicker than this meaty part of your thumb. So think about that. That's what, about 1 inch thick When things get thicker than that, let's say it was the thickness of my wrist, that's when things can blow up in the kiln. This is okay, but no thicker than that and no thinner than your little pinky. My little pinky is only about 1/2 inch thick. Now everybody's hands are different, but if you go like this in Hawaii, hang loose, right? That's why I call it the hang loose rule. So think about no thinner than your pinky, no thicker than this part of your thumb, somewhere in between. I could also take my thumb and kind of pull it up the sides of this little cup. And notice I don't have 2 thumbs in here. If I have 2 thumbs, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to pull this apart and make it more like a plate. So instead of having 2 thumbs, I just have 1. Notice I'm also not like this. If I do this, this is going to start making a plate or something more flat. And I want this to be more of a cup. It's kind of an upright shape here. Now down here I can feel it's a little thicker than up here, so I can push that a little bit more and just keep pinching and turning. My goal, like I said, is to get the walls of my cup even thickness. Now, I have made a million pinch pots. You guys, this might be your first time working with this kind of clay, maybe the first time since you were a little kid working with Play-Doh. So it is okay to say, oh, this didn't work. Squish it in a ball and start over. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So just for the sake of the people that have long fingernails, I want to show you a trick, something else that can help. Now, first of all, if you have very long fingernails, and I'm talking about your natural nails that you might need to clip down while you're taking this class, or those, we know what they are, you guys, right? The fake nails, the ones that have all kinds of jewels on them and all kinds of cool things, and they're beautiful. But for ceramics class, it's really not going to work. You're going to struggle and it's going to be difficult. So I would suggest keeping your fingernails short while you're taking this class. But if you do have long nails, and when I'm pushing my thumb down in, I'm getting a bunch of stabby marks, one thing I can do is use the back end of a tool, such as a needle tool, or maybe the back end of maybe a larger paintbrush. And I can use that instead of my thumb to kind of help me create this pinch pot shape. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be perfect, okay? Using your thumb is the best way to make a pinch pot. But if your fingernails are very long and you haven't taken the time to either remove them or trim them for this class, that might be something you need to work on. Now, another thing I can do once I get it opened up is I can take my sponge. Let's say I have a very long, fancy fingernail. I'm going to take my sponge and kind of pad my fingernail and use that, to go around and still be able to use my thumb, because I can't have this be too thick. Miss New said it can't be that thick or it's going to blow up. So I'm still going to need to get in here and push this out and open up my little cup here. So just a couple tricks there. If you are someone who has very long fingernails, please come talk to me. There are some things we can do, but the best thing you guys can do is either remove those fingernails if they are false, or to trim them down as we move forward in ceramics class. Okay, so you can see I've got 2 pretty good pinch pots here. Now I'm supposed to make a pinch pot creature. So what can I do to make this a creature? Well, I could turn it all the way upside down. Ooh, it'd be fun. I can make a little ghost. I could put eyes and nose and mouth on this and make it into something. I could keep it this way, right? So this one is an example of the one that's turned over upside down, this little piggy. See the pinch pot under there? I could turn it this way and add things to it. Some eyes, I could carve in the eyes, add some hands, add some teeth, things like that. Or I could turn it on its side. So because I don't have an example of a one on its side, that's what I'm going to do with this one. And what I'm going to do is make the opening of my little pinch pot, I'm going to make that the mouth of my creature. So I'm going to make a bottom here like that. And let's make some eyes. I think the best part, the part that's going to really bring your creature to life is to add some eyes. So I'm going to make 2 little spheres of clay for the eyes. And I'm going to think about putting them up here. Ooh, that could almost look like a little frog or a little clam or something like that. So I like the way that's looking. So if I wanted to actually attach those eyes, there's a couple things I need to do. And you're going to hear me say this over and over and over in this class. We need to score, which means to scratch the surface of the clay. I'm going to do that with a needle tool. So let's do that first. I know my eyes are going to go here, so I'm going to scratch in one direction. Here's where my other eye is going to go. And then I'm going to cross hatch. So I'm going across. What I'm doing is roughing up the surface of that clay. See how it looks all torn up there? That's what I want. I'm going to do that scoring to what I'm adding and what I'm adding it to. So both things. So if I'm putting a tongue, I'm putting eyes, I'm putting a nose, I've got to score. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add the slip. So the slip is like the glue that holds this together. I'm going to grab my little wooden tool here. I could use a small paintbrush, but since I have my wooden tool here, this is fine. And now I'm going to put the slip. So the slip is like glue. Think of it like your Elmer's glue bottle. Okay, so I'm going to put the slip on there. So I'm going to score, I'm going to slip, and now I'm going to blend. So I'm going to push this little eyeball on there and kind of push it on, right? Nuzzle it in there. And because I've done that slipping and scoring, that's going to help to make sure that these don't fall off. Now I also have to blend. So what I could do is use my little wooden tool here and carefully take a little bit of that clay or just kind of use that slip and go around and blend that eyeball onto the top of my creature. If I forget these 3 steps of score, slip, and blend, what do you think is going to happen when this thing gets bone dry on the greenware shelf? I'll tell you what's going to happen. Those eyeballs are going to go think, and they're going to pop right off of there. They are not going to stay. So if I forget these 3 steps, score, slip, blend, I'm going to be in real big trouble. So see how I blended that all the way around? Now another thing that can kind of help with smoothing and blending is a wet paintbrush. So I'm going to reach across here. I'm going to grab kind of a stiffer brush and my water, and just to really smooth that out. I could also do that with my finger, but if you've got fat fingers like me, you can just get in there with a little wet paintbrush and smooth all that out. All right, that's looking good. Now I know my eyes are well seated. They're gonna stay on there. They're not gonna break off. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have to do this if I work with polymer clay, or maybe you've tried other kinds of air dry clay. Well, you guys, this is a different kind of clay that maybe you haven't used before. So just take my word for it. Trust me. You're gonna score, slip, and blend. Now let's give this guy some eyeballs, some pupils. He's got eyeballs. Let's give him pupils, because all of a sudden he goes, bing, hello, there he is. He looks very worried with this big mouth. Let's see what we can do with this mouth. Maybe we want to, add a little wiggle. Maybe I want to make him more smiley. Maybe I could tilt up the corners of the mouth. Yeah, now he's looking a little bit more happy. So see how little changes can change the personality or the feeling of your design. Now, this guy's looking good. He's got some eyes. Let's give him some teeth. Let's talk about adding some teeth. So again, I've got some extra clay here. So I'm going to grab some little extra clay, and I'm going to make what's called a coil, or just a little snake. Again, think back to when you were a little kid playing with Play-Doh. And I'm going to make some teeth. So I'm just going to take my needle tool, and using that coil, I'm going to cut it into a few little pieces here and maybe shape some teeth. Oh yeah, I don't know if I need all of those, so I'm going to make that a little smaller. Now that could be kind of fun. What if I want to add some teeth to this guy? Now I am keeping this on a coil because I want it to be all attached. I could also make individual teeth, but I do like them, kind of staying together They're a little easier to attach that way. All right, so there's some teeth. And let's go ahead and put that on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put him on the top. He seems like a guy who needs some teeth on the top. So if I'm gonna attach it, I'm gonna score, I'm gonna cross hatch. I'm gonna take my little teeth piece here and do the same thing. Sometimes I just kind of dip my needle tool in the slip as well. I'm gonna rough up that surface. I'm gonna take a little slip and add a little slip to where I'm putting that. You can see my hands are getting a little messy. And that's okay. It's better to be a little messy and have his little teeth well attached here. So I'm just gonna put that on there and then I can work on shaping it. Oops, there we go. So now that it's on there, I kind of lost a little bit of my teeth here. So I'm just gonna go back in and kind of shape that. And I can also use my wet paintbrush. And all of this is, you know, sculpting, blending. I had to score, I had to slip, and now I have to blend and get those teeth on there good. And now this clay's pretty wet right now, so I can also do a little bit more to him on day 2, like carving. I don't want to do too much carving when the clay is wet. That's kind of hard to do. But when the clay is more dry, it's a little easier for carving. And I also lost kind of the lip. So I'm just going to carve a little line back in there just to show that that's where the teeth are. Oh, that's looking great. I like this guy. I'm going to make sure he still sits on the table. Now I could keep going with this one, but let me show you a couple other ideas. I have this other pinch pot sitting over here, so let's go ahead and do something with this one. So instead of doing the sideways one like I did, for this one, I'm gonna keep it more like a bowl or like a little cup. And that way it's gonna be more of a functional vessel. So let's say on this one, I wanna put the face on the front, kind of like this one here. So what I'm gonna do is just make sure I have enough clay up in here to build a little face. So I might wanna kind of make a flat spot. And then let's go ahead and add some eyes again. Now you can do eyes in so many different ways, you guys. You could carve in the eyes. This one has kind of an X for the eyes. Here's one where the eyes are just more carved in, and that's fine. But I'm gonna go ahead and add some eyes, but this time I'm gonna make them a little ball, and then I'm gonna flatten them out like that, okay? And again, if I want to attach them, I'm gonna score, slip, and blend, but let's just kind of put them on there and see if we like where this is going. I wanna add some hands to the sides. I could put feet on the bottom. Here's one where I put little feet on the bottom of my candy corn guy, but let's see, I wanna do little hands. My hands are getting a little dry. Speaking of hands, I can always get my sponge, get some water back in my hands. If my clay is getting dry, my fingers are like little erasers in the clay, but let's make some little hands. So again, I'm using a bigger piece, kind of chopping it into pieces, and then making little hands. And this is the kind of part that's fun. I mean, you can decide what look you want your creature to have, but let's say I want to put little hands on the side. And again, I'm not, oops, I'm losing my finger. I'm not going to attach all of this right now. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Another thing we can do is add a mouth to this one on the front here. Let me flip this guy over a little bit. And a way I can do that, again, let's try this trick with the coil. Now, instead of cutting this coil up, I'm just gonna make kind of a lip. And then I'm gonna add some teeth, some pointy teeth. Or they could be more square teeth. But let's add some pointy teeth to this. But I'm attaching it to the coil. And James DeRosso, who's the artist exemplar that we're studying, he talks about this trick. He calls it the overbite monster and the underbite monster. So if you've seen the video, the Oregon art video about James DeRosa. You might know this trick already. But if I put this here, then his teeth go down like that, or I can flip them over and have the teeth going up like that. Isn't that fun? So that's something, oop, I've lost my hand. That's something I've done just to show you some differences here on my two candy corns. You can see how their teeth are different, and one's got the overbite and one's got the underbite. So let's say you're done sculpting for the day. Now this one I'd have to slip and score everybody on there, but just pretend. Let's say I'm done for the day. What I'm going to do is store my creatures on a wear board or just a small wooden board. So I'm going to go ahead and put these guys here. Oops, I messed up his teeth. Anything that I'm still working on sculpting, I could put that on the board. But if I have any extra clay that's not anything that I've sculpted, I'm just going to keep that back in my bag. But for these guys, I'm going to put a little wet paper towel on the top. So this wet paper towel needs to be not dripping wet. So I'm going to step over to the sink. 3 little pumps from the paper towel will get you just enough. I'm going to get my paper towel wet, and the trick is, you guys, I'm going to squeeze out the paper towel. Then I'm going to open it back up. I don't want to have soaking wet, dripping paper towel, just a little bit. What I'm trying to do is create a little greenhouse effect. Okay, that's plenty. And now I'm going to take my larger bag. Now these are the larger bags that our our bags of clay come in. I'm going to take my creatures and I'm going to slide them in. Let's see if I can show you this. I'm just going to slide them into the bag. Then I can take the edge and I can do 2 things. I can take a little twist tie, which I have plenty of extra red twist ties, or I can just kind of tuck that under that like that. And this can go in my cubby until the next day. What happens if I don't put this in a bag is my little creatures are going to dry out too much, and then next class I'm not going to be able to do anything with them. So it's really important that you store them in a bag so that you can keep sculpting and adding texture and things like that. So this would be about how far you would get on day 1 of your creature. And the next video, I'll show you how to add some texture and finish these off. Thanks for watching, you guys. I can't wait to see what you create. See you later. Bye.